Nicolas Cage and the Real Price of Money, a story about debt, discipline, and taking control. Let's start with a simple truth. If high income guaranteed financial security, Nicolas Cage would never have had money problems. And yet, he did. At the height of his career, Cage was earning tens of millions of dollars per year. Oscar winner, global fame, unlimited opportunities. From the outside, it looked like success without limits. From the inside, it was a financial collapse waiting to happen. This is not a story about a celebrity mistake. This is a story about money, responsibility, and what it really takes to recover when things go wrong. And that is why it matters too. Everyone. When money stops feeling real, Nicolas Cage did not become reckless overnight. His problem was more subtle. When income keeps growing, money starts to lose weight. Numbers stop feeling real. Spending feels justified. Risk feels manageable. Cage bought castles. He bought multiple mansions. He bought a private island, rare art, exotic cars, historic properties. To him, these were not just purchases. They were symbols, investments, expressions of identity. And because the money kept coming in, there was no immediate pain. That is how financial danger hides. The moment reality arrives, then reality arrived all at once. The real estate market shifted. Maintenance costs exploded. Liquidity vanished. And tax obligations piled up quietly in the background. Eventually, the headlines changed. Millions owed. Properties in foreclosure. Public ridicule. For someone whose career was built on independence and control. This was brutal, but here is where the story changes direction. The most important decision he made. Nicolas Cage had options. He could have filed bankruptcy. He could have blamed everyone else. He could have disappeared for a few years and waited for the noise to fade. He did in single quotes. Instead, he made a decision that defined everything that came after. I am responsible. Even though he later sued his former business manager for financial mismanagement. Even though advisors may have failed him, Cage accepted that the final responsibility was his. And that mindset is everything in finance. Because the moment you accept responsibility, you regain control. No escape plan, only a work plan. Cage made another critical choice. He would not escape his debts. He would pay them. All of them. That meant selling assets he loved, quickly, painfully, sometimes at a loss. Homes, land, collectibles, pieces of a life he once believed represented success. This was not downsizing. This was survival. Redefining pretty. Then came the phase most people misunderstood. Cage started working constantly. Independent films, genre movies, voice acting, projects with small budgets and little prestige. Critics mocked him. Commentators called it desperation. They weren't wrong. It was desperation. But it was disciplined desperation. Cage stopped treating acting as image management and started treating it as work. Every role was a payment. Every paycheck reduced pressure. Every year moved him closer to freedom. This is a lesson most people avoid. There is no shame in honest work when you are rebuilding. The rules that saved him during this period. Cage followed rules that apply to anyone facing financial recovery. First, cash flow matters more than status. Second, debt reduction comes before comfort. At one point in Hollywood history, Nicolas Cage was untouchable. He was not simply an actor who appeared in successful films. He was a brand, a guarantee, a force. An Academy Award winner with global recognition, Cage commanded salaries that placed him among the highest-paid actors in the world. Studios trusted him. Audiences recognized him instantly. His future looked infinite, and yet, within a few years, that future nearly collapsed under the weight of debt. This is not a story about a man who went broke. It is a far more complex story about how enormous success, unchecked freedom, and misplaced trust can quietly turn wealth into a trap, and how discipline, humility, and relentless work can reverse even the most public financial fall. The psychology of unlimited success. Nicolas Cage did not grow up wealthy. When money arrived in overwhelming amounts, it arrived without a manual. Like many artists who achieve sudden and sustained success, Cage saw money less as a boundary and more as a tool for expression. He collected rare artifacts, historic homes, art, and symbols of cultural legacy. These were not casual purchases. To Cage, they were meaningful, personal, almost philosophical. At his peak, he owned multiple luxury properties across the United States, historic castles in Europe, a private island in the Caribbean, rare art and collectibles, exotic cars, and unique personal assets. Problem was not one bad decision. The problem was scale. When income is massive, mistakes do not appear immediately. They compound silently. The slow collapse no one sees coming. By the mid to late 2000s, warning signs appeared. Real estate markets began to shift. Maintenance costs on underused properties skyrocketed. Liquidity dried up. Meanwhile, tax obligations accumulated faster than expected. Cage trusted professional financial management, assuming systems were in place to protect him. They were not. Eventually, reports surfaced of millions owed in back taxes and unpaid obligations. Properties entered foreclosure. Headlines turned cruel. Public perception shifted from admiration to ridicule. For someone whose identity was deeply tied to craft and independence, this period was devastating, but the most important moment came next. Accountability, the decision that changed everything. Nicolas Cage could have disappeared. He could have filed bankruptcy, blamed advisors publicly, and waited for time to soften the narrative. Many celebrities do exactly that. He chose the opposite. Cage openly acknowledged that, while advisors may have failed him, he was responsible for the final decisions. This mindset mattered more than any legal outcome. It meant there would be no shortcuts. He would pay his debts, not symbolically, not partially, fully. That decision transformed his entire strategy. The lawsuit and the lesson. Cage did pursue legal action against his former business manager, alleging negligent financial guidance and mismanagement. The case was resolved privately, without public financial disclosure. But even after that, Cage never positioned the lawsuit as salvation. In interviews, he made it clear legal outcomes would not erase responsibility, only work would. That clarity separated him from many public financial collapses. The hardest choice, selling the dream first step, was painful. Cage sold assets rapidly, often below emotional value. Homes he loved, items he believed represented legacy, pieces of his personal mythology. This was not downsizing. This was liquidation. Every sale hurt, but every sale created breathing room. For the first time in years, money was not about expansion, it was about survival. The work phase, redefining Prithith, and came the most misunderstood chapter of his career. Cage began accepting a high volume of roles. Independent films, genre projects, voice acting, supporting characters, productions that lacked prestige. but offered reliable payment. Critics mocked the output. Audiences questioned the choices. Commentators assumed desperation. They were partially right. It was desperate, but it was also disciplined. Cage reframed acting not as image management, but as labor. Every role represented a payment toward freedom. There was no shame in working the rules that saved him during this period. Cage built his life around strict internal rules. Rule 1: income stability comes first. He prioritized consistent cash flow over selective prestige. Rule 2: no lifestyle inflation. He resisted rebuilding comfort until obligations were reduced. Rule 3: total financial visibility. He became directly involved in understanding taxes, payments, and contracts. Rule 4: work is dignity. No role was beneath him if it moved him forward. Rule 5: time isn't alive. You stay disciplined. He accepted that recovery would take years, not months. These rules were not theoretical. They were enforced daily. The people behind the recovery Alpha Cage carried the burden personally. He did not rebuild alone. New financial advisors implemented conservative oversight. Legal professionals negotiated structured tax resolutions. Producers valued his professionalism and reliability. Directors trusted his intensity and commitment. Yet, the most critical factor remained his own endurance. Accepted public judgment in exchange for long-term control. The moment of resolution years passed. Debts decreased. Tax obligations were settled. Financial pressure eased. Eventually, Cage publicly confirmed that he had resolved his major financial issues. No dramatic announcement. No victory lap. Just quiet relief. What remained was something far more valuable than money: autonomy, reinvention, not redemption. With financial survival secured, Cage's career entered a new phase. He took creative risks again, not out of necessity, but choice. Critics began to reassess his performances. Audiences rediscovered his unpredictability and depth. What once appeared chaotic began to look intentional. The man who had been mocked for excess emerged as an example of resilience. What this story really teaches: Nicolas Cage's financial journey is not about extravagance. It is about what happens when income outpaces structure, how trust without verification becomes dangerous, why accountability matters more than blame, how sustained effort defeats public embarrassment, why real work restores control. Did not escape debt through excuses. He did not hide behind fame. He did not wait for rescue. He worked. Final thought: Nicolas Cage did not lose everything. He lost illusions, and in exchange, he gained something far more durable: discipline, perspective, and ownership of his life. His story is not a warning against success. It is a lesson in how to survive it.